grown up in Glasgow with an Irish Catholic dad, a Protestant British mother. The family was very divided, so I was never forced into one side or the other. Obviously, being raised in Glasgow, I did see the bad side or the ugly side of the Scottish game. You know, the fighting, the bigotry, the old firm, that sort of thing. So I took a distasteful to it. I never liked football. I was more a rugby man in school, and it took me playing rugby, ironically, in a public park with my school, training. So with Holyrood Secondary, I was training for rugby, and I looked around and I was like, this quite isn't right. So this, whatever this park is, I done Googling, and that park being Kafkin Park, for any Third Lanark person out there knows the depth of it. So I Googled, and there was this team called Third Lanark that used to play in it. And I Googled more, found out they were an amateur team, which they still currently are. So there's a Phoenix team out there. And I just kept Googling, and it was mental. I started to learn the game of football through Third Lanark, essentially both a dead team and a Phoenix team. So I was learning football through these boys on a Saturday in Tory Lane pitches, and it was delightful to watch. It's a very scrappy game, the amateur side. But yeah, kept watching Third Lanark, and then my friend from Perth decided, do you know what? Invite me to a game. So she invited me to a game, obviously a St Johnstone game. Of all teams for us to verse, it was Celtic. So I'm on this train full of Celtic fans going from Glasgow to Perth. If I remember right, it was 2017, and I think we lost 5-0, if I remember right, the score. And ever since then, I've been following both Saints and Third Lanark. I was appointed Third Lanark's historian during lockdown, and then obviously during lockdown as well was the St Johnstone side. We won the cup double, and I grew to I went from hating the game to being clinically obsessed with the Scottish football game, with the fans, with the love, the chants, the rules, the okay, maybe the odd disagreement with the referee. The whole love of the game came to me differently and fairly rare, because I know usually it's like fathers, family, but I found it through essentially Third Lanark, a dead team, through boys on a Saturday kicking about football, and then eventually, obviously, to St Johnstone. So it started the cup double. So obviously, I'm round the corner from Hampden Park, and during the first lockdown when we were in the League Cup final, it was the Scottish government at the time had zones, so you weren't allowed to leave your zones. And me being in the Glasgow zone, being round the corner from Hampden, I had the privilege or the honour, I suppose, to be able to stand outside Hampden during what was obviously a very historic. Well, obviously we did win it. It would have turned out to be a very historic final. So I wanted to show my part being face to face, and I didn't want to do it without a football strip. So I reached out on the St Johnstone banter page, and I reached out and I went, "Hey guys, I'm just looking for a strip, that I can wear, stand outside Hampden to show my support." Before and after the game, I went home to watch the game, and this gentleman offered me a top. He didn't want anything for it; it was just an old one, and he gave me it, and I wore that to the League Cup final. I then bought a League Cup final top, the special edition, that I wore to, again, the Scottish Cup final as well. So I had two tops, and then I bought another one which was three, and then I bought that year's strip which was four. It started off asking for one top. It then spiraled into me getting one, getting another. Loving football strips. I've already loved football strips thanks to the Third Lanark team, and I didn't stop. And the whole match wearing side of things, a gentleman, I went all the way from Glasgow to Perth to go to the Tulloch Institute, and a nice gentleman gave me a bin bag, quite literally a bin bag, with tops inside it. And there was two match worn tops, which at the time I knew nothing about. I didn't know match worn tops. I was very new to the football shirt game, and I took them. I think I paid about £100 for the bag. Took them home, And I realised a couple of weeks later the importance of these two particular tops. And then I told myself I won't concentrate on match wearing because they tend to be expensive with match wearing shirts and classic football shirts and all that. These great websites that are coming up. But I just kept leaning towards it and I kept being offered and people popping up to me and me reaching out. And essentially, what started off as one football top during the 2021 League Cup final has now arrayed into a collection of, is it just about 300 items altogether. So match wearing, I've got 101. When it comes to replica strips, which you can buy in the shop, I've got 86. And then I've got about 90 match wearing shorts, joggies, training kits, pre-match sort of stuff, and then other bits and bobs. So yeah, I've got 101 match worn tops and replicas and shorts, and just it goes on and on and on. Well, no, I don't want to blow my own bubble, but as time goes on and I fill gaps, as I say, there's less gaps for me to fill. So there's less tops for me to desire. Um, but there is a couple that I am missing. One of them being the top I'm wearing just now. I don't have the match worn version of that. The 1990, 94 to 96 third strip. It was only worn a handful of times. But that's one of the strips. Another one being any from the Cup double. I'm very fortunate enough to have a top from the 2014 final, but I don't have one from the Cup double. So both the League Cup and the Scottish Cup from 2021, I don't have any of them. I do know of a handful that are out there, but obviously very sentimental to individuals. But yeah, pretty much any top, any match worn shirt that isn't within the collection yet is essentially my desire. I know it doesn't finite the answer, and it's a very blanket response, but anything that isn't in the collection is something I want to add to the collection. Yes and no. The one of the things I love about being a St Johnstone fan, and apologies to all our fans, I will be a bit biased on this one, but the community feeling behind it, and I would like to think other football teams are the same. The community feeling behind people popping up to me, and people recommending other people. I've had, especially with the older strips, it tends to be family members that was like, "Oh, my dad used to drive the buses, and I've got this just bag of stuff," and it turns out to be the 1982 home strip. There's training kits, so it is slightly harder to get older ones, but through the community vibe, and again, that sounds cheesy, but through people just supporting other people, everyone knows someone who's got a top or knows of, there's always ways if you work hard enough, there is a way to get it. So the first strip I got altogether was which was just the replica one, was I'm trying to think here, the 2014 to 15 home strip. So that's the one that was gifted kindly. The first actual the match worn one that I got from the Tulloch Institute was the 19. Let me get this straight here. The 1994 to 1995 home shirt. So it's the one where it looks kind of stripy. There's a collar. It looks like a cross between like lines and splatted paint, as such. So that was the first match worn one. So 94 to 95 was my first match worn. It honestly, it depends on the strip. So I will be honest, when it comes to the older strips, not really, unless there's big names like Brogan, and then you've got Roddy Grant, and things like that. So there are the odd names that pop up. When it comes to more modern ones, like when I've obviously personally been watching Saints, then yes, absolutely. I'm just very fortunate that when I do obviously get a more modern match worn shirt, that there's a potential that I've obviously seen that shirt being played, which is even better. And I have recently been sponsoring. So for the last couple of years, I've been doing the player sponsor. Two seasons ago, I was lucky enough that I got somebody called Matt Smith. The funny behind that, for any geek out there, Matt Smith is also the name of the Doctor from Doctor Who. So as soon as I found out that there was a player called Matt Smith, I rung up the club and I got a sponsor for his home shirt for two years in a row. So I got to know the player. So the fact is, not only did I see the player play it, I've got his shirt, and I've also had conversations and met him after matches, and you know that personal connection to not only the player but to the shirt. But when it goes to other shirts in general, absolutely, there's two. Obviously, being a St Johnstone fan, there's too many names, especially recently with the Cup double. There's like Rooney, McCann. There's just my ultimate favourite. I don't know if this was going to be a question. My ultimate favourite, and I don't have a Saint strip from him, is Xander Clark. I've got his Scotland strip, so I managed to source his the prepared one in the changing room. So I managed to get his Scotland strip, but I don't have a Saint strip from him yet.
Okay, probably the final question. Where does this end up? Where you can't actually move in the house for strips? I mean, there's obviously a finite number of St Johnstone strips, and there's obviously not that many. If you go beyond when they were made of cotton, there's not that many left. You know.
Wait, going further back, I know of my collection goes further back to 1982, which is the pinstripe one. I know of one top before that, which is out with my. I can't buy it. It's a lot of money. Essentially, the person's asking for it, and I know of one strip that's from the 70s. It's sentimental, and he's not willing to part with it, which I fully respect. So yeah, you're right. There's not a lot going back the way. Only a handful. Going forward, there's going to be an infinite. So currently, my answer is I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But I would like to have one of everything. I've been very fortunate that I do have doubles. So if need be, if I'm running out of space or whatever, I'm always happy to even swap some of the doubles I've got for something I don't have to help slim it down. But going forward, we'll see where it goes. You
Okay.
learn things doing all this collection. So daft wee things that you learn collecting older tops, not so much newer ones these days. The top I'm currently wearing, you'll see the badges are like stuck on, so they're just like velvet. The older ones would have been stitched. So as soon as you see an old top that's stitched, there's a high chance. So yeah, it's older tops are harder, but easier to spot, easier to authenticate.